summer camp, the outdoors, the activities,
Grab your packet, grab a mat, grab a seat.
a few nerves,
I don't really know what I expect.
but this is no ordinary camp. Teens tackling tough topics,
A lot of the workshops were very heavy.
It's actually been very eye-opening.
talking about things that matter.
So many people have so many different opinions.
It really educates you on the world itself, and it really broadens your worldview.
Learning to make a difference.
It's like no other thing that I'd ever experienced before this.
We all have a voice. It's just a matter of using it, and I plan to use that voice.
WBTM 13 Project Community, changing lives in any town. This summer here at Camp Hargis, a group of teens proved you can change lives in any town, anywhere, by listening, learning, and understanding. They showed us that meaningful and sometimes difficult conversations can lead to change in our communities. 66 student delegates from 35 schools spent 1 week here with no cell phones, no tablets, no computers, just time together face to face. This year was the 30th Anytown, an annual program possible because of a relationship with the YWCA and the National Conference for Community and Justice of Alabama. To participate, students submit an application complete with references. The program coordinator says she makes her selections to form a diverse group of delegates.
Diversity isn't just racial diversity. We need socioeconomic diversity. We need location diversity. We need religious diversity. And then also too, just ideal diversity. And so we have some students who are super versed on the topics that we're talking about. And we have some students for the first time are hearing about these things. And we want all of that because we know that any student that walks through our doors and that comes to Anytown is going to leave a leader.
I love that it gives teenagers in this state the ability to just speak in a really safe space about really difficult, really heavy subjects, and especially I think in just the general political climate.
This year, the YWCA invited us to participate in this life-changing event. Over the next hour, we're going to show you what the delegates go through during the week and how their experience changed each one of them for the better. Now, Brittany, you were actually there when the Anytown delegates first met each other.
Yeah, we all gathered downtown Birmingham at the YWCA, and that was before coming here to camp. Everyone didn't really know what to expect.
Yeah.
They were nervous, they were shy, but everybody was really excited to get here. Suitcases and duffel bags.
I don't really know what I expect.
Signing in, hugs, goodbyes to family,
I'm here because of my stepmom.
and loading up onto the bus. You excited?
Yeah!
Teens from all walks of life, here for a variety of reasons.
I want to learn how to be a better advocate for the people around me and myself.
Every face, a different story.
Back in elementary school, I was bullied severely to the point where I was put in the hospital for 4 months because they mentally screwed me up.
I come from a background of basically a lower income struggle. My parents, when they first came here, they had to do a lot of part-time jobs to achieve where they are today.
And on this very first day, a grand entrance to camp.
Awesome, let's get off this bus.
Camp counselors leading the way. Everybody a somebody at Anytown, Alabama, a camp that prides itself in making everyone feel included since 1989. And although strangers at first, the delegates come hoping to meet new friends.
I am Catholic, so if I can meet someone else who is Catholic too, maybe that'd be really cool. Or people from other religions to kind of hear that side.
Very nervous, but I'm a people person, so I feel like I'll adjust easily.
There they sit side by side and join in to sing together for the very first time.
Now, they seem like a great group of teens, and they were actually excited about the chance to participate.
Really excited. And we actually spoke to 7 of those delegates about what they hope to gain from being at Anytown.
I hope to gain new friendships. I really like meeting new people, so I feel like me being open to this experience will really impact my life.
I just want to learn a little bit more about myself and talk about important issues that you maybe can't talk about in school or in religious places.
What I really want to learn is, you know, the diversity of all these different cultures, all these different discussions about race, socioeconomic status, you know, different issues that affect our communities.
How to become like a more open person, because I kind of keep to myself. So I want to learn how to like branch out more.
Have you met anybody new so far today?
No, not yet.
My aunt recommended this place because she said it's not, they don't tolerate bullying or anything. And with past camps, I've experienced that a lot.
I came out as a lesbian and it wasn't very accepted. I heard about the camp through my school counselor, who knows about my history and knows what an advocate I am for social justice, and she was like, this camp is perfect for you.
I imagine it'll be a little difficult at first, maybe a little awkward since we don't know each other, but I hope that as the week goes on, it'll kind of feel more natural.
Now, Guy, you were here at Anytown on the very first day.
Yeah, the delegates were just starting to get to know each other. Each day is different, but the schedule is similar. Every day starts with flag raising. You can see it's pretty early and they're still waking up. While at Anytown, the delegates are split up into different cabin groups, and during this morning flag raising, each group shares a story or a memory or something that's impacted them with the larger group. It's a time for reflection. After that, the competition for who gets to eat first begins. That's the delegates trying to get chosen to eat first. Nothing really significant about being chosen first. It's just something fun they do. But it's more than just fun. Anytown's about sharing stories and experiences and realizing how your personal experience can improve your community.
Yeah, and it looks like they don't waste any time. They really jump right into some pretty serious issues.
Yeah, on day one, they jumped into very important topics, and one of the delegates shared her story with me.
So far, it's been really fun.
Storm Luster is an Anytown camper or delegate.
I haven't been to camp in a really long time, and so it's kind of awesome to be back.
But things haven't always been so awesome for Storm.
Well, at my old school, I came out as queer, and it was taken really badly. I was bullied really bad by a lot of the students, and the teachers didn't do anything. They sat and they pretty much watched it happen.
Once you get with your process partner, you will be handed a blindfold and will be asked to go on an obstacle course.
Which made today's exercise in blind trust interesting.
The purpose of the workshop is to basically continue to strengthen and build the connections and trust that y'all are starting to establish at camp, you know?
Trust is kind of a difficult thing for me. Yeah, so I kind of lost all my friends. I've been through a lot.
She and her process partner, Charles, had to quickly come up with nonverbal cues to lead each other through a makeshift obstacle course.
I mean, going into the obstacle course, it was like,
Delegates led each other around pillars, over picnic benches, and literally through hoops.
Be careful, you're gonna fall in some water. Hold your breath.
I was telling myself, please don't mess up and misread his cues and fall into the water.
As you can see, the threat of water was just a distraction. Coming to Anytown has been a welcome distraction for Storm.
I absolutely feel more accepted here. I mean, in my old school, I couldn't dress the way I wanted or like who I wanted. Now, people think it's really cool that I have blue hair and a nose piercing.
Friends come a little easier in the diversity and openness of Anytown. But what Storm says she's most looking forward to?
Need a nap.
During that exercise, you heard a lot about process partners. Now, they talk a lot of tough topics throughout the week here at Anytown, personal and emotional topics, sometimes in large groups, sometimes in small groups, but ultimately you just need one person you can talk to and trust.
Yeah, and that's why they get assigned a process partner at the very beginning of Anytown. It's someone they can meet with one-on-one to kind of digest what they're learning, and as you can imagine, those partners like Avery Martin and Justice Brown can become very close.
We had to go to dinner and do an interview with each other to kind of get to know each other, and immediately we already had so much in common. We're both very vocal people.
You talk to them like, how did this make you feel? What was your favorite part? Just kind of having someone to talk to in a more intimate relationship. We have someone to kind of talk to without the pressure of like an adult or like standing up with a microphone and letting everybody hear it.
And we learned a lot about like who we look up to celebrity-wise, and ever since then I feel like we can talk about absolutely anything and not just in our process partner time.
You know, friendship is important at Anytown. These kids are talking about some very difficult subjects that are tough for even adults to talk about.
If you were ever called names because of your religion, class, or sexual orientation, take one step back.
Next, we joined the teens at camp for the second full day when the theme was power and privilege. And later,
Where are you from? Really? Where's that?
experiencing something we see in the headlines every day. We're talking about immigration situations. Well, the second day at Anytown focused on power and privilege. And Sherry, you were here that day.
I was, and you know, every day it starts out cheerful, all of the delegates chanting their anthem, having a great time, but on this day, it got serious really quickly. An enlightening exercise about power and privilege.
Stay looking forward the entire time, do not look back.
Every delegate starting out the same, in one line, holding hands.
If you were ever called names because of your religion, class, or sexual orientation, take one step back.
As more questions are called out, you begin to see a clear difference in who's been exposed to more challenges.
What that really showed us was really the sort of division that is not really like explicitly shown to us in like our everyday lives.
What really caught Julian Camarillo off guard? Learning the people that he feels most comfortable with face the most adversity.
Some of my fellow Hispanics, they were in the very, very far back in like sort of that lower class position. And, you know, that kind of surprised me because, you know, we've been knowing each other pretty well for the past couple of days, but yet we have like this huge difference in socioeconomic status.
Other emotion, just emotion words that people felt through that.
Avery Martin is thankful, but emotional.
Just some of the questions I heard, I never could imagine having to struggle like that because my parents work hard and they always provide for me what I want and need.
The devout Catholic says despite attending private school her entire life, she comes from an average middle-class family. But after ending up at the front of the group with the more privileged kids, she now knows she has it a lot easier than most.
I always saw privilege as someone who is really rich and everything in life had kind of just been handed to them. And now I see it's not quite that. There's some smaller privileges you have that you might not even realize.
Anybody surprised?
Justice Brown was, in herself, for assuming just because someone is white, they're privileged.
I judged some of these people beforehand. I was like, oh, well, you're white. Like, you know, you must be privileged. You go to a private school, you have to have privilege. But they really weren't that privileged. And that shocked me. And that's on me for having that prejudice.
She, too, has been on the receiving end of bigotry.
Some of the questions were like, have you ever been the subject of like a racial slur or maybe a gender-based slur or something dealing with your religion? And me, I'm a mixed girl and I don't necessarily associate with a religion, so I have experienced, you know, harder stuff, like obstacles that go along with that.
Brown and other delegates who form the middle group really feel like they've been exposed to challenges, but also live comfortably.
I feel like because of that, we have an obligation to really join the communities together because we've had this perspective of both sides. It made me come to this realization that we live in this same nation, the land of the free, yet we are not exposed to the same freedoms as individuals.
It was just a very eye-opening activity. We kind of take a lot of things for granted.
Wow, that was powerful, and I bet very eye-opening too for the delegates.
It really was. You know, I also met a teen here who says while these conversations are really powerful and emotional, and she wasn't expecting that, it also taught her, though, that she's not alone.
If you listen, what? You can hear it, and it's what we call the Anytown Spirit!
Madison Rogers is slowly getting into the Anytown spirit.
I kind of came here for like answers, you know, guidance,
What she wasn't expecting? To form bonds with so many strangers so quickly.
At first, I didn't think like nobody here really felt where really understood my situation. But then when one of the girls went on and talked about what she was dealing with, I was like, well, there's someone here that can relate to me.
Opening up about her home life isn't something she normally does. But with this group, conversations get deep, bringing up a lot of raw feelings.
It's just so many emotions.
From anger and jealousy during a difficult power and privilege exercise.
It was said, have you lived in a home where you were around like drugs and stuff like that? And have you ever went to bed hungry? And that really kind of hit home here.
To her relief, even some excitement, learning she's not alone.
I really have to deal with this. Like, this is real life. And, you know, like, some of us have to go back to these situations, and it's like you feel hopeless.
This very diverse group is helping her grow and learn new ways to cope.
It felt really good because, like when you don't really have no one at home to talk to, and you feel safe talking to them, then that feels good.
You know, it's really amazing. Everything that these brave teens not only shared with each other, but also with us.
Yeah, that is pretty cool. And it seems like they really learned a lot about themselves here during their week at Camp Hargis as well.
They really did.
I didn't want to step forward, but I was going to be honest.
On day 3, the focus turned to race and ethnicity with an exercise that really challenged the delegates. Also, an opportunity to teach others through celebration. Now, Eunice, you came here to Camp Hargis on the 3rd day of Anytown.
I did. On that day, they focused on racial identity and ethnic background.
And there is a difference, right?
There is. Your ethnic background is based on your country of origin or your cultural makeup, whereas your racial identity is based on physical characteristics or how you identify. The campers were separated based on their racial identification and were asked several questions, and some of those responses were very honest and eye-opening. I had the chance to visit with the young man, Tyler Nelson, and after participating in this exercise, he shared with me his new appreciation for respecting others as well as his own privilege.
One of the first questions was what kind of household were you raised in? Like, was it were there racist jokes? Were there racist comments? Were you told to, respect other races or not trust other races?
Tyler came to a new realization very early on in this exercise as some of his fellow campers stepped forward because they haven't been raised to be as accepting.
I realized how lucky I was that I was raised like that and that I didn't have to learn that for myself or or judge other people for how they look just because that's how I was raised and I didn't know any better.
Although his parents have taught him to respect and love everyone, the exercise did bring some of his own past behaviors to light.
I do try my best to love all people and accept all people, but there was a question that was like, have you ever made a rude joke or anything? I didn't want to step forward, but I was going to be honest, so I did step forward and I realized that I didn't even, I was, talking to with other white kids and I never even realized that I did a joke like that and I feel terrible that I have now. And stepping forward in front of those African American, my fellow camp people, and my new friends that I've gotten to know, it hurt me, and I'm pretty sure it hurt them to realize that, and a lot of us had done that. I also felt like it was bad to admit that I've done that, but also good to get that off my chest that I have done that, and that I would like to not do that again, and that I want to, try my best to be respectful to all people.
Tyler also had never had to think about whether he saw himself reflected positively in images in the media regularly, something his fellow campers haven't experienced.
Most of the African American campers did not step forward, and I realized I had never even thought about that when I was a kid, my books had, white kids playing, and I never thought anything about it.
The step-up exercise highlighted several challenges Tyler's fellow campers experienced and gave him a new perspective of his own life.
Main thing that I've realized is how privileged I am and how lucky I am.
And he has plans of using his position to help others.
I want to be a lawyer to, help people who are not either educated in law or can't afford equal representation, and just because where they're from.
I mean, wow, these are very heavy conversations.
Yeah, and they're learning a lot, not only about themselves, but they're also starting to understand how some things they may have thought have been true in society might be misconceptions.
My mom told me it was a leadership camp, so I thought we were learning new skills that to take to our schools, but we're learning that and more.
Cameron had grown up feeling that all white people had negative thoughts about black people.
Growing up, I did hear sometimes how people would assume that white people had a certain standpoint on how they viewed black people. I learned that everybody has their good days and their bad days. Not everybody sees black people as a threat. Some people aren't even exposed to being with them every day. So to see that other people are in more diverse schools than I am, it really opened my eyes.
Cameron also came to realize that even though she attends one of the top schools in the state, she's missing out.
I attend Ramsey High School, so we're more predominantly black. So to be here with people from Spain Park, Altamont, all of these different diverse schools, I get to learn the different cultures and different ethnicities that I don't experience at Ramsey.
After her time at Anytown, Cameron now plans to be proactive in order to have different experiences with different people.
I definitely will start signing up for different activities that don't include just African Americans. I like to branch out and meet new people.
Now, Eunice, those teens were talking about issues that many adults would never dream of addressing.
And not only were they talking about them, they were celebrating their differences. Brittany, you got a chance to attend the celebration of differences.
Yeah, that night, all the delegates separated into different groups that they most identified with, and they came up with this presentation to share with everybody, with the whole goal being to help to understand what it's like to walk in someone else's shoes.
I am the only Jewish delegate this year at Anytown.
A celebration of differences at Anytown. Brooke Smith shares her background.
The Jewish year this year is actually 5,779 because we are an ancient religion.
And feels accepted sharing her culture and values with the group.
The Jewish traditions and Jewish foods and religions.
The delegates were all split up into groups that they identify with.
All of us have African descent, and we chose to sing and dance to a rapper named Logic because he's biracial.
And came up with a presentation.
I'm from Bangladesh, and I would also be considered Bengali.
And what you notice here, despite racial, cultural, religious, gender, or varying mindsets. Everyone listened closely to each other.
A lot of different things from the white culture. We had a lot of people playing sports. We had people like me who were talking about our religion. I talked about Catholicism. We had a couple of people who sang for us.
All showed support and participation.
That means the most to me every day is my gender. I feel empowered by being a female.
Organize, agitate, educate. I was a part of the Asian, Hindu, and Muslim portion of the presentations, and so I am Muslim, and so I talked about the holy month of Ramadan. What it is in the Muslim faith is it's the holiest month of the year.
A world of diversity showcased in a room of differences that are all celebrated. And together they sing their mission. You know, what a great way to end the day. Once strangers, now friends.
And the next day, more exercises that take them out of their comfort zones.
Or legs. Okay. Yeah. Can I switch my disabled leg?
Learning what it's like to live with a disability, if only for a little while, and later a different challenge.
You're not a citizen, so
I still can't get a job.
The delegates experience what it's like to be an immigrant, something that hits very close to home for some of them. So far this hour, we have seen teens deal with some very serious situations, have difficult conversations. They're talking about things that people in Central Alabama deal with every single day. But, you know, instead of ignoring them or making light of them, they're actually learning how they can make their communities better. Now, on day 4, the topic was empowerment. And Brittany, you were here, and they kind of had more of a physical challenge.
Yeah, this was an exercise to see what it's like to walk in somebody else's shoes. What happened was everyone gathered in a big circle while Anytown counselors handed out crutches, wheelchairs, glasses you couldn't see out of, and material to tie around your arms and your legs to keep them from moving. The delegates really didn't know what to expect here, and it sure wasn't easy. Blind, deaf, legs out of commission, and how to eat breakfast with no arms? Takes a little bit more time, right?
Yes. And it's kind of awkward because I don't know him, and so we have to help each other.
Megan Story did a little problem solving of her own. How difficult is this for you?
Well, I have a really big phobia of like disease or sickness or disability, so I'm struggling to hold myself together right now.
Holding her hands together, a piece of material.
I feel like just terrible doing this.
Victoria Kindle not feeling herself either. Are you struggling a little bit this morning?
I am.
She's never walked with crutches before and says these simple tasks are a challenge.
Can I switch my disabled leg?
When the exercise was over, most campers could stand up or take off their glasses. But for people who live with disabilities every day, it's not that easy.
Past few years, I would break down and cry and, go to my mom and tell her how I wish I could see.
Sanaya Finley, 18 years old, blind now for 6 years, on a panel telling her peers living differently abled is not what defines her.
I'm still Sanaya. It's just I can't see, so I'm still myself.
Her inspiring story opening Victoria's eyes to a whole new viewpoint.
We're all the same, just living our lives a little bit differently.
And beyond physical limitations, one's not so visible, autism, a topic brought up, and depression, transforming Megan's morning mindset. She no longer feels alone.
Had just such confidence to go up there and educate us on what their life is like. Going back to having depression like Joan, I felt like I wasn't alone. A lot of people avoid these kind of conversations and confrontations because a lot of people don't want to step out of their comfort zone.
While the exercise was not easy, it was educational for all participants.
And later they actually address something that we see in the headlines every day, and we're talking about immigration.
Sir, it's your turn, sir.
It is 12 o'clock in the morning.
Sir, I need you to be calm.
Some of the kids at Anytown know firsthand the struggles immigrants face.
I know as a descendant of 2 parents who've migrated to this country, made me more appreciative of really not just of who I am, but like how far I've come as a person and from my own background.
Where are you from? Really? Where's that?
Before I speak to you, I still need to see your passport.
Others were shocked and outraged.
It really helped people open their eyes to what is really happening.
It made me feel angry. I wanted to call a lawyer and get it and go to court with it.
Storm Luster's mother is an immigrant. She came to the U.S. from Hungary, and she says at first her mom had a rough time.
It took her almost 10 years to complete her citizenship, and I was thinking that's considered lucky. If my mom has all this privilege and she's struggled so much, I can't imagine how immigrants of color or immigrants who haven't had it as lucky feel, and I just started crying.
No, I'm in the office now.
Honestly, it was scary because I didn't realize how much they go through. And I'm just blessed to know that I'm a U.S. citizen and I can do what I please. And I just want to help everybody else.
When did you begin to realize that, the cards were obviously different, but they meant different things?
That's really, in a lot of ways, what Anytown is students learn from each other. They learn that we all have really different experiences in life based on various identities that we have, whether it's race, whether it's gender, tonight, whether it's immigration status.
Julian's family and their heritage is important to him, and he says he now has more respect and a better understanding of what his mother and grandmother have been through.
She was just crying in tears, and I just want to let her know that, hey, I'm fine, and I feel more empowered.
The Anytown delegates experienced a lot of different scenarios while they were here at Camp Hargis. On the last day, they learned something very important for the future.
How do we take the knowledge we've learned into our communities, our schools, all the places we frequent, and just spread this message of equality?
Preparing to re-enter their communities and share the things they've learned with others. Plus, we'll meet a man who came back to camp 30 years later. So after a week of all those exercises and some very serious conversations about some pretty tough topics, it's now time to take those lessons learned back home.
Yeah, so I came here to Camp Hargis on the last full day at camp, and fittingly the theme for that day was reentry, transforming our communities.
All the way from Jackson, Mississippi.
Delegates showing off their best dance moves during Friday morning's mail call at Anytown. But the mood quickly took a more serious tone as the 66 delegates jumped into their final day.
How do we take the knowledge we've learned into our communities, our schools, all the places we frequent, and just spread this message of equality?
Delegates tackled the cycle of liberation. Facilitators discussed empowering yourself with new knowledge, reaching out to others in the community, and making a difference. The students were challenged to make a movie, bringing some of their experiences to the small screen. This group tackled how men and women are portrayed in film and television.
The media expects me to be a non-educated black man who raps and plays basketball, but I really attend the International Baccalaureate program, and I graduated top of my class.
Delegate Niles Moore goes to Jefferson County International Baccalaureate School. He says the personal and at times challenging discussions have been significant.
We discuss and we really break down how we feel, how it relates to the world.
Another big part of today, and really this week, was learning from others through raw and candid discussions. There was an emphasis on listening without judging and learning to walk beside someone who you may not see eye to eye with.
If there's no understanding and there's no respect in situations where you're talking with people who disagree with you, then it will only lead to conflicts and disagreements and it won't go anywhere. But having a peaceful conversation where you can be assertive and you can stand with your beliefs but still have that conversation can only lead to good things.
Delegate Avery Martin will be a senior next year at John Carroll Catholic High School. For her, this week has been about learning from others, especially those from different faith backgrounds.
I go to a Catholic school, and so the majority of my friends are Catholic, and this experience has led me to meet a lot of people with different religious beliefs. I've met an atheist, I've met someone who is Muslim, I've met just a lot of different beliefs, and we're able to have very civilized conversations about our religious differences and kind of learn from each other.
You can tell this camp really makes a lasting impression, perhaps none more so than one of the original delegates for here at Anytown.
Yeah, Thomas Walker was at the very first Anytown camp 30 years ago, and he came back this year, but this time to be a counselor. He says the experience when he was a teenager was eye-opening, to say the least.
My Birmingham experience was so different from their Birmingham experience, and I think I had been taught that we wrapped up all these issues back in the 60s, and that was part of Alabama history, fourth grade check. And to hear from my peers that no, some of the same issues were there, and new issues had come up in terms of gender identity or sexual orientation, some of the religious pieces, really woke me up.
The counselors are all volunteers. They aren't paid a dime, but still, it was important for him to make the trip from his Colorado home to give back to the camp that meant so much to him.
For me to get to come back to my home state and see how things have or haven't changed, who the next generation of leaders are, it's worth some early mornings and some hard mattress nights.
Anytown 1989 was such a powerful week for Thomas. It changed the trajectory of his life. He now runs the social justice education program at a university in Denver.
I really think everybody leaves with something that shows up in lots of different ways, from that first week back, regaling friends with stories of who they've met, to those lifelong little moments where they have opportunities to make a positive change, and Anytown helps them do that then.
So, 30 years ago when Thomas attended the camp, there were a lot fewer distractions than we see today. Very few people had cell phones. There were no tablets. There was no social media back then.
Yeah, so nowadays, though, when you see teenagers, you typically see them buried in their cell phone, scrolling, kind of looking at their phones, not engaged. But that was not the case here. You saw teenagers sitting around and just talking.
Now that's amazing. And that was very intentional, right? Counselors actually collected their cell phones.
Yeah, so they had limited cell phone access throughout the week. They got it from day to day, but at the end of the camp, some students were not as excited to get it. Some were a little reluctant. They were more present, more living in the moment, and just more engaged.
Okay, that's shocking, first of all. But they did get the phones back, right?
Yeah, so they got them back at graduation, and that was another really neat day to be a part of. So we were there on the final day as all these delegates graduated. I want to share some of those special moments with you as we take you to break.
So at the beginning of the camp, we asked 7 delegates what they hope to learn from Anytown. And over the past hour, we've shared a lot of their experiences with you. We have seen these teens talking about some very important issues that really we all should be talking about.
Yeah, so I had a chance to catch up with those teens one last time before they left the YWCA on Saturday morning. We talked again about what they learned during the week and how they plan to take all of that back to their communities.
I like to, inform my fellow students that there are other people and there aren't just people of our kind. We need to branch out and help other people who may not be as blessed as we are, and to help them overcome their struggles.
So many people have so many different opinions, so listening to what everyone has to say really just makes you step back and think about what your own beliefs are and what your own opinions are.
All the people I've met, all the different perspectives I've got to know, and really just a lot of the different things we've learned about and the different struggles we've gone through made me really empowered to know that people, no matter how different they can all still be unified as one people.
Just to be a more open person, not to judge people just off of how they look or how they act, just try to get to know them because you don't know what they're going through.
It was eye-opening. So many, literally changed my life. And I cannot wait to take what they've given me and spread it out into the world.
This just kind of reaffirmed kind of what I already knew, and it's made me even more determined to make Birmingham, make my school, just make this world a better place for everyone in it.
You will make friends with people you thought you would never even talk to, and it'll be one of the most life-changing moments of your life.
Now, all the Anytown delegates we talked to say this week at camp has really had a lifelong effect on them, and it will affect how they move forward in life. But the experience is also very impactful for the adults who work with them.
It's like no other thing that I'd ever experienced before this, and I think it's just such an asset to the community, and every year I'm just so in awe of the students that come, and it just makes me more and more confident of the leaders that were, that are being pushed out into the world. So yeah, I just love it.
You guys got to know these kids. They were all just so impressive, and I know you guys were all really affected by Anytown. Brittany, you've been talking about it for a couple weeks now.
Yeah, one takeaway that I really had was everybody at camp was able to see things from a different perspective. Everyone has their own stories, everyone comes from different backgrounds, but being able to meet people that they've never met before and really almost put themselves in their shoes and to see what life is like, and not defining other people by the challenges that they face every single day.
Absolutely.
But not only not defining people by their challenges, actually hearing those challenges for the first time for a lot of them, and having a new respect for challenges that other people might face that they never even thought about.
I know with the panel discussion, I went the day that we spoke about disabilities or differently abled people, and when they heard the panel and there was a girl that was blind that spoke, they had so much appreciation for what she went through every day, and so many of them went to go talk to her after because they were just so intrigued in her story and how she handles life.
That was one of the things I heard one of the students talk about on the last day was, you know, everyone's got something they may be going through. Everyone has something that makes them unique or different, or that, you know, they may be walking with, and you never know that. And it's good to kind of learn from others and to kind of see that everyone has a different perspective. And it's about recognizing that and affirming that and kind of learning to walk beside them.
And this was a great place for them to also learn that they're not alone in that everybody has something that you can't see on the outside that they're actually going through. And it sparked a lot of conversation from you guys too. I mean, Eunice, you came back from your day and you and I kind of talked about some of the things the kids talked about. It certainly sparks that in the adults too.
And I was thinking, how could we as adults possibly do that? And I don't even know if they have such a safe space at Anytown to be able to share, not feel judged, feel respected by their fellow campers. If you could just take a little piece of Anytown and bring it back with us was really the hope for all of us, I think.
Yeah. And Sherry, what did you feel like you got from it?
To sort of piggyback off of what Eunice is saying, they were so sensitive to each other's feelings. They were really able to just take a step back and put themselves in other kids' shoes for a moment where they might not have been able to do that outside of Camp Hargis. So this really taught them a lesson on how to do that and to take that home with them. And it was just really amazing to see how sensitive they were. Also, just really smart kids. Really, if this is any inclination of what our future leaders are going to be like, we're in good hands.
Yeah, they were really amazing kids. And you think about, we don't give kids a lot of credit, Ian, these days, but they have some pretty deep thoughts, these kids.
They do, and what really impressed me was just kind of standing back and watching on that last full day, just how vulnerable all these delegates were, and they were sharing personal things, they were talking with one another, but while they were kind of trying to learn from one another, they weren't challenging one another in a way that was aggressive. It was a way that was very supportive, and you could tell that they wanted to learn from one another, and they wanted to learn about different perspectives, and it was just great to stand back and watch that and to see those discussions happening, not just in the group setting, but, you know, those smaller group discussions when people were really just trying to seek to understand where someone else was coming from.
And as much as they learned about their fellow campers, they really learned a lot about themselves. They became very self-reflective of, have I done that? How could I do something differently? And I think it showed how effective camps like this are because they got it. They definitely got it.
Some of the campers that I spoke with, they had never experienced certain situations before. Some of them were very religious. Other kids here were not. And some of the things that they went through in life didn't kind of right along with that religion. So they were really respectful, and they learned a lot about other people and how they can see life through the eyes of those other campers.
But when they were learning about those differences, they were also realizing, I think, maybe we're not that different, because you have challenges you have to deal with. They may not be the same challenges I had to deal with, but we all have challenges. Maybe we're not that different.
Yeah. What was really cool too is to see how they opened up throughout the week, right? I was there when they first arrived. Nobody really knew each other. They didn't know any of those songs that they were singing. They didn't know what they had in common or what was different. Then to see them not only meet each other, get to know each other, but really open up throughout the week to see where they were, where you were on the last day was pretty incredible.
They were really close, and you think of all the stuff they had shared in the, right. I mean, these are some really deep discussions, and discussions that, you know, may not have taken place in another setting, but here they felt comfortable to have those discussions, and they felt comfortable to kind of challenge one another and to take a step back and look at a perspective that may not be their own. And I just thought that was incredible.
And they've made, I think, lifelong friends. Mm-hmm. Some of them will stay in touch for a very long time, and these are friends they may never have made outside of this place because they may never have been in a place to meet those kinds of people who are so different than they are.
And they'll make a lot more friends because they'll be open to different people that they'll come in contact with, and they'll know I can meet a stranger and make a friend. They really walked away with that confidence. And the other thing I think about, I like buzzwords, and the words that I think about when I saw what they did here is like vulnerability, security, respect, empathy, that those kids are going to go out into the world and hopefully spread it in their peer group.
But if you think about the history of Anytown overall, 30 years ago, we're just talking about maybe black versus white issues and people living in the same kind of general area, but living basically two totally different types of lives. Now you have racial issues, you have LGBTQ issues, you have mental health issues. The evolution of Anytown is a lot bigger over this last 30 years.
And it will continue to evolve, I'm sure. It's been so cool to kind of get this inside perspective on it. We're going to continue this discussion right now on Facebook Live, so we encourage you to log in and join us for WVTM 13's Project Community, Changing Lives in Any Town.